mind is that we're gonna follow that schedule. We'll have the board will have propose a public hearing in December, and hopefully we'll be able to make some decisions involving those 3 schools in January. Then we would, and this is just what I said, then we would authorize a study that we talked about in the southern part of the county. We know that it couldn't be implemented next year anyway for a lot of reasons. But to get past these 3 issues, three organizations, or to come up with something else instead, but to do that and make those decisions in January, because if we don't make the decisions, then it affects next year. Does that make sense?
Well, it does make sense, but I just think that we as a board need to, I guess, be consistent as we move through this process. And consistent, now whether consistency means what you do for one, you do for another, to me that's sort of consistent. But what it sounds like we are sort of changing the process as we work our way through this. Maybe that's necessary, but it's not consistent.
I do have 2 comments. I would like to know, when did we set a date for January to be the final date when we're going to make decisions? I remember all the discussions we had, we was talking about we was going to do all 3 of them, and then we was going to make a decision after we would do that. Just refresh my memory. I just can't remember when we said that January, or this coming January, was going to be the date that we was going to make those decisions. And I heard Mr. Peace loud and clear about not having a survey. But I also heard Mr. Richardson, Mr. Mills as well, and Mr. Rivers as well. I think just to smooth things over even better, I still would agree with him too. Wonder why you wouldn't just offer Murray Potter School the same thing other survey people.
Then maybe we ought to vote on whether or not to have a survey, because we do have people who have different opinions, and that's what the board chair is suggesting. If someone has another idea, we would understand that. Yes?
So I have 2 questions, and one of them's to help refresh my memory. What was the thought behind doing the original survey for Joe Toller? Because what I feel like is what we said for Mary Potter is people are going to show up to the hearing, we're going to hear from them. Well, from what I'm hearing, people are going to show up tomorrow night, and we're going to hear from them as well. So that would be my thought of why. But then I guess the question for the staff is, we're December 3rd. How quick is this survey going to get out before it, and granted, I mean, it sounds like the survey's done, we just got to get it out. But can we get it out, get it back, and put it into a form for us before everybody goes home for Christmas, before we start meeting again in January? I mean, what does that timeline look like?
Well, I would think that if we did a survey, excuse me, we'd have to move the timeline. We can't do it. And hold for the hearing by the December.
And the question I have is, the public hearing, we can't interact with people we're talking. Right? It's not binding. I mean, the public hearing for health and life science was a majority of people saying keep it open. But we made the decision October 30th to close it. If we get a survey back from Joe Toller that says, people who respond say to keep it open, is that binding on us? Do we, in the face, if we get a Mary Potter, I mean, I think we have discussed the issue of Mary Potter, and Mary Potter is very unique, and it's a very, it's a school of which I am very proud as a resident of Granville County. I think the Mary Potter Academy, in its heyday, was a powerhouse school. It was a credit to this county, and I believe we are maintaining that heritage in moving Mary Potter campus into the 21st century. I think the public comments, at this point, we either got to decide, are we going to try to do it this year or not? I don't think we can do Holly this year, I really don't. I think we have a chance of being able to do Mary Potter and make a decision on Joe Toller this year. But I think if we start trying to lengthen the process, it's going to put a huge burden on Dr. McLean and her staff if we decided in February or March to close Mary Potter, I don't know that they can.
Let's go ahead do I have a motion to,
Can we get an answer about how quick this survey can get out and be done, as close to possible?
Mr. Rivers? I mean, Mr. Rivers, I've got you on my mind, and I'm like, Mr. Winborn, you have the same first name, so.
I'll defer to Dr. McLean. I think she's been in touch with the folks at RTI about this, so.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, one of the things you'll find with the community survey you put together was that it had your input. And the questions for the Joe Toller survey were very specific to Joe Toller. Now, if you have the exact same questions and concerns from Mary Potter, that can go out and we can get with RTI tomorrow and get it out within a day or two. But if the issues you want to survey the community on are a little different, then that's going to require them time to, for you to submit some things, for them to get it to their researchers, for them to see what bubbles to the top, and then create surveyable questions again. That took about a week the last time. And so that's just, you sort of have two things at hand. If it's what you have already created for one school, you want to use the exact same thing, well, that's done. But you do add time and cost every time we change.
Well, and I don't see how Mary Potter has a national, which means people from all over the world probably would want some input. And when the word's out there, they're going to have something to say. And that's why, I was talking about, if you graduated from that school 60 years ago, 70 years ago, if you're still a member of that club, you can imagine what the answer is going to be to a question. I mean, that's why I was saying initially, if you already know what the answer to a question is going to be, why ask it? I mean, that's the bottom line. And that's just my opinion, of course. And I'm entitled to it, so
You have absolutely right. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And I would say ditto for Joe Toller. I don't expect us to get any surveys back saying, close Joe Toller. Just like I wouldn't see us getting any back about closing Mary Potter.
We'll find out soon. Tomorrow. Okay, so do I have a motion to conduct a survey for Mary Potter? Hearing none, let's move on.
This concludes.
So I believe we're ready to move on to the second part of our presentation this evening. With me tonight, we have representatives from the firm Davis Kane, and I need to pull your presentation up. But Roby Stevenson, would you please come to the podium and introduce the folks that you brought with you tonight?
Hi, how's everyone? I'm Roby Stevenson, as Dr. Winborn mentioned, with Davis Kane Architects. And thank you for allowing us to help you. I am too from a small county that's nearby and has similar challenges, and I appreciate what you're trying to do here. So with me is Beth and Michelle. They are architects in our firm. They primarily assemble the data and the study that you'll be seeing tonight. And with CLH and Dewberry, the corresponding civil engineering and PM&E engineering firms working with us on the study, they may have some expertise along the way here to answer questions. Beth's going to give the majority of the presentation. It shouldn't take that long. I know what you're really interested in is talking about the numbers, and we'll talk about that at the end. But I'd like to go through the study in brief and give you kind of the background as to how we got to the numbers. So Beth, you can take it.
And Roby and Beth, if I could ask, careful with the acronyms for construction, so like PM&E and things like that.
Plumbing, mechanical, and electrical engineering. All the building systems that you that you have to have for lighting and heating and cooling. Good advice.
Stan.
Yes.
Hey, I asked the same question too.
Welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. As Ruby said, I'm Beth King with Davis Kane Architects, and the presentation we have is a summary of the report, which Michelle passed around. But I can fly through some of it and try to get to the guts of what we're really trying to say about what we assessed at the Mary Potter. The goals that we were given when we were asked to come on board was obviously this idea of repurposing the campus for central services. And so our tasks were to go in and identify the facility conditions. Those are aesthetics, disrepair, systems, which is the building, the plumbing, mechanical, electrical, how the site is working, and with that, look at how that changes in regards from a school property to an office complex property. So we applied everything that we looked at to the 2018 building code, and also the 2018 existing building code, which alleviates some of the need to change existing schools. And so we had to go fairly in-depth, more than I'll talk about tonight, but it's in the report, on what the conditions of the school are. It's a non-sprinkler school, things like that, how big the campus is, where the firewalls are, to know what we can most simply move into and not have to change the structure of the campus itself. Some of the big pointer on this slide is the site zoning. It's in a residential area, it's an R6. The school in that area, primary or secondary school, is a special use permit in the current zoning, but an office building is not currently an allowed use for that campus, so it may require rezoning to bring an office into that space where you're sitting in a residential area. So that's the first thing that will be something to address as you're moving forward, is what the restrictions are to them, and if that's actually going to be required in this county. So this, I'll just hit the highlights. The CLA says assess the site circulation. Athletics is up there as a assessment of what the school is as a middle school. And the reason it's still there has to do with what we're looking at as a potential for the campus. And since there are community use opportunities in the school, because it was a school that aren't going to obviously be necessary for an office building, there is some potential for some community use on this campus, so we kind of left that up there in the assessment to understand what potentials there are on the site for other community uses. They looked at drainage, stormwater, utilities, and streams and wetlands on the site. That's all in the report they're finding. I think one of the bigger issues to further investigate would be that there's two very large stormwater drains running through the site, which is why in 2001 addition you have that bridge that is lifted off of the land. There's actually two 6-foot diameter culverts, stormwater pipes running through the site, carrying the water. So that's one of the need to further investigate as we go through it. This just addresses the years the different parts of the building were built, so we got to understand what era they were brought in and what kind of codes were in place at the time, so we understand how it was built and how that references the code today. So the fact that they were built in detached stages between the 50s and 60s and the 80s, and then that 2001 piece kind of brought it all together. By 2001, they were building in the firewalls that create the barriers, that create a building area that's allowed by code today. If that makes any sense. So with a non-sprinkler building, there's a certain amount of area that an office building can take up on a first floor before you have to protect it from further area. So those walls are really in place because the addition that connected everything in that green area was built in the 2000s. So that's a positive for how you can go in and use the building without having to try and separate an existing structure into what today qualifies as two different building areas, if that makes any sense. You can kind of fly through, these are just some of the pictures of the exteriors. We can go ahead and, an assessment of the building conditions itself. This is more of a visual inspection as we walk the building. Are we seeing crackling brick on the exterior, talking CMU? Cinder blocks, cement block, it stands for concrete masonry, that doesn't really help you further. The stuff you see in school quarters. And there wasn't anything in really any disrepair condition of note. Obviously, things are worn, it's been many years, and some of it's been updated with that 2000 edition. The concern more is how you feel moving in an office space that was built for a school. School colors, VCT floors, that kind of thing. I'm gonna go ahead and move through. Windows, doors, there are some current thermal and accessibility issues. Simple ones in the doors, a lot of doors are still knobbed that still have knobs on them, which is not allowed today. Simple things that we can change out to make improvements there. The windows, on the half that we're gonna propose to move into, have actually been replaced and are double pane as opposed to the 50s. And the gym side and that two-story 50s building are still the single pane windows that were originally installed back in the 50s. Go ahead and say. Dewberry has assessed in full the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems. The fire sprinkler at the bottom only says that the building is not sprinklered, so that was just something we had to take. That today can become an issue for building educational facilities, but as an office building, it wouldn't be required to be sprinkled, so we don't need to factor in costs to sprinkle this building to move into it, which is also a good thing. And then this being a summary of the code review, the items on the left are kind of the big items we look at when we don't have a full program of what needs to happen in this building, what's going to happen in this building. These are the things that we experientially know can come up and be red flags, and so those are the ones that we hit on to understand. I've already talked about the allowable building area, the way the firewalls are in. Currently, we're under the required amount of square footage you can have, so that's a good thing. Fire resistance construction as well. It was built with the corridors protected and the stairwells protected, which is your egress out of the building. So that's also a good safety measure that's already in place. No major issues with means of egress. We would have to probably switch out the handrails and guardrails in the stairwells because they're not compliant to that. Also, one of the more simple things. Your energy efficiency is not going to be what it is if you build a new building today for the energy code in North Carolina, but it's also not required to be changed for you to move into the building. We would only have to meet the code for the new things we build. If we build an addition on the building, we'll have to prescriptively meet how much insulation is in the wall, that kind of thing for the new ones. But we're not required to change any of that out to move into the building. And then the plumbing fixtures is a count. That's obviously always a big thing. Is how many toilets do you have in certain distances of where people are working? So we had to do an assessment of understanding where the group toilets are for the school and how that relates to business capacity and business requirements. And in all cases except that admin media center, and this also has to do with some of the proposal of what we think would be best for the campus, is lacking in toilet facilities. Everything else, there's either sufficient or exceeds it with the group toilets that are there for the students already. So this is just a diagram to show that those two red lines that you see, those are the firewalls that are separating the buildings. So the blue area, the kind of purple area, and the yellow area, by the code, are considered three different buildings per se. So you could move in into different areas, take those chunks. Those would be the easiest places to move into without having to build structure to protect yourself. So if we draw a line somewhere else to cut off where we want to move into, we're talking about having to insert some pretty fire-resistant construction into those areas, if that makes sense. And then accessibility is always, obviously a big thing. Across the first floor, if you come in the main entry, you can pretty much get to everything on the first floor by current code. Because you're on the same level, there's the one ramp around the bridge area that transitions to the 62-story building. Everything else on the first floor is accessible if you come in that main entrance, which is allowable by the existing building code to have one entry and one path to come to get to everything that's primarily considered a primary function of the building. Obviously, our problem is that we have two-story buildings without elevators, and there are potential exceptions that we can't take yet until we truly know what the program for the building is. But in all kind of safe progress, you have to add an elevator in one location or the other, or both, if you were going to actually renovate the entire thing to be able to access the second floor of the 16th building or the 50th building, or a lift, or some means of helping a wheelchair person get to the second floor. So this represents what we proposed once we looked at the information that Stan gave us on the departments and how many staff we're talking about, the fact that we want to bring the functions of this building over there. Our assessment was that we could use the area in blue for your purposes, which is at one of those lines, and so the area in gray can become something else, and that in some instances could be anything else, because we've got our firewall separating. It could become a different use, I guess is what I'm saying. So all those recreational, like we have a cafeteria there, a gym there, could stay as those assembly spaces, and we're separated off from what we're calling our office space. So that's why we drew that line, as well as the things north of that line are obviously newer and require less renovation to meet today's code. And this is kind of the site equivalent to that diagram. The purple is the area we're talking about converting to central services. The yellow is the area that could become further auxiliary space for central services. We proposed, like I said, community use, since the gym is there. Go ahead and flex it up. And this is what you're all looking for. So we narrowed it down to, since, like I said, the program is not set. Right now it's vague, but we want to move this many people over, that kind of stuff. So the way we approached it is that there is a minimum requirement of what you would have to do to convert a school educational facility to a business office facility by code. And so that was our first approach. There is additional just things you have to do for your program. We're proposing that you convert the media center to your boardroom, so there'd obviously be some work to do to create that into a boardroom. So there are some additional functional requirements in that cost. But the base assessment was on what is the code going to require you to do. The maximum is kind of a full-blown, if you go in and you replace the roofs, because they're going to be at their serviceable age, either already or soon. You go in and you replace windows to make them thermally up to code today. If you look at your finishes and look at carpet and replacing VCT and all the mechanical, electrical systems. Obviously, if you're in a school, you have outlets so many places in a classroom. You want to put workstations in there for office where you now need data and all that stuff. There's just things that practically, to be the most feasible for your work efficiency, would need to change from the way the school is built to the way an office building is built. And that's kind of where that maximum sitting. And so this is the breakdown of how we got to the numbers. The first gray bar is the building, kind of the architectural aspect, which is separated out from the second gray bar, which is the restrooms themselves, only because the cost per square footage to go in and renovate an office space is very different from the cost to go in and renovate a toilet room. Toilet rooms are very expensive, obviously, because of the finishes, the fixtures, the plumbing, all that's involved in them. So we separated those costs out. The third bar is that PM&E, which is the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical for the building. And then the fourth is the site. And in the site, everything that we have costed out is that essential services campus area for the building and the plumbing, mechanical, and electrical systems. Obviously, we can't draw that same line in the site to say, don't do anything over here. The site still kind of operates as a whole. So that site number was looked at what parking has to be added or paved or made accessible that's not currently accessible now. The way this site is accessed and the drainage and the stormwater collecting the things that aren't operating correctly now, the water's ponding against the building and fixing the grades to get the water in and things like that. So that's all site whole. It obviously doesn't include any upfits to the site for fields or anything like that, but just how the site needs to function as an office building. And then below that, so that's the subtotal line gives you your construction cost, estimated construction cost. With a contingency applied to that in the next line. Design fees for designing, for hiring the professionals to design the campus. Cubicles was pulled out as a separate line only because the minimum level of renovation was assumed to be cubicles to try to get the actual minimum. So you're not talking about building walled offices in that number, which would come obviously in the maximum. And then the additional owner cost is everything else that comes along with the construction project that's not paid to the contractor, the surveys and topo information, and other furniture that you have to buy to put in. And these are all assumed. We don't know what you're carrying over from here, that kind of thing. So these are experiential numbers that we use.
Okay, questions? Are you ready? Mr. Mills?
Yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate this presentation. But I was looking for something, and perhaps you can point me to it. Would it be under mechanical, electrical? You mentioned the need for an elevator. Where would I find that in these numbers?
The elevator is primarily in the building costs, and it's included in the building cost numbers. Plumbing, I think, has costs for the sump that's in the bottom of it, but primarily it's an architectural thing that the architect specifies.
So is that in the $1,059,000? Is that the top number?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
Can you just give a brief overview? What would you say the difference between our value versus the extra number, the 4 million to the 12 million? What is the biggest driving factor of that $8 million?
It is a comfort level. I mean, that sounds trivial to say. In the finishes, it is a comfort level, whether you're in an office of VCT versus going in and putting carpet in, that kind of thing. Switching out ceiling tiles that look worn over the years. But a comfort level thermally is one of the big factors. I mean, the way a mechanical system is designed to service classrooms and the way they're used throughout the day is completely different than the way it's designed to wall off offices and make sure everybody has some level of control of their space.
I'll supplement. Your usage cost would be greatly reduced because a full renovation would include windows and roofing more insulation, more efficient mechanical systems, your operational costs would go down. So, I mean, that's an upfront investment, but that would be a major contribution.
The 4 million, that really is the minimum cost? I mean, that seems outrageous to me.
I don't disagree. I will
Especially
say,
coming from a small county. I mean, we can't even, we're trying to get money to re-roof schools that have leaks right now, that we're fighting with our commissioners to get.
Yeah.
How are we gonna, is that a Taj Mahal, or is that just,
No.
I mean, the
No, so
4 million?
what we should talk about, now I'm protecting the messenger here. But what we start with is the architectural $30 a square foot. So what does that buy you? So we go back and we look at our historic data, and we think about, you know, what does $30 look like in a renovation? It's probably some doors, door hardware, improving a few things here and there, and some painting, and that might be a little high. Maybe it's $20 a square foot. Okay, you know, but that's not a deal breaker. If we're talking $10 a square foot difference in the architectural over 36,000 square feet, that's about a $300,000 delta. I mean, that's not a big chunk of that 4 million. But when you talk about upgrading electrical systems, which would be code required, and mechanical improvements, and the toilet room renovations, those are where the numbers start to grow and make it seem unreasonable. Because you don't see the renovation, but they would be required.
So I guess my question would be then, if we have our children going to a school right now,
Mm-hmm.
and you're saying it's not good enough for them?
No, I'm not
It's- I
saying
mean,
that.
it's good enough for them, but it's not good enough for us?
I'm saying that once you go from an educational use to business office use, the code requires that you make certain changes. In other words, you cannot continue using certain features of the building once you decide to change the use. So you have to make some of those electrical upgrades and mechanical upgrades.
But no, why couldn't we keep it as an educational, since we'll have the Phoenix Academy there, which is a school, we can't keep it code-wise as a school?
No, because you're changing how you occupy the building. You're changing from a classroom use, which, you know, has students, a certain number per square foot, to business, which is different. It's a building code requirement. Now, you know, I don't disagree. It seems like a lot of money for what you're trying to do. But that's.
Well, for instance, do we really need the second floor of the blue space you showed?
No.
That could just be storage. We don't need an elevator if we're just gonna store Christmas decorations up there. I mean, do we have enough room with the media center, the admin area, and the downstairs for all of our needs right here, and leave that as storage?
Wouldn't,
Save a lot of money there.
I wouldn't say that's impossible. Not at all.
So, you know,
We talked about that.
this could come down, the 4.8.
I'd rather tell you a high number tonight,
Right.
and you see a low number later.